The truth is, the reason they don't seem to miss you the way you miss them isn't because your love was smaller. It's because your love became familiar in the most dangerous way. Not familiar like safe and healthy. Familiar like always there no matter what. Familiar like background noise. And the human brain doesn't grieve what it believes is permanent. It doesn't panic over what it assumes it can access whenever it gets bored, lonely, guilty, or nostalgic. So while you're lying awake replaying their tone, their timing, their silence, their scene with no reply, they're sleeping because their nervous system isn't alert. Yours is on high alert because your body has been trained to treat their inconsistency like a threat. Theirs is relaxed because it has been trained to treat your consistency like a guarantee. Right now you might be thinking, but I didn't mean to train anyone. Exactly. You didn't do it on purpose. You did it the way most real people love. You gave chances. You forgave. You assumed stress, not selfishness. You tried to communicate instead of punishing. You showed up when it would have been easier to protect your pride. You stayed when a colder person would have walked away sooner. But love without limits doesn't just become painful. It becomes predictable. And predictability, in the wrong hands, doesn't create intimacy. It creates entitlement. Before we go deeper, let me ask you for something, and I'm asking it because if this topic is hitting you, you're not looking for entertainment. You're looking for clarity. You're looking for something to hold on to when your chest tightens and your mind spirals. So if you want a channel that talks about this like a real psychology guide, not like a fake, do this and they'll beg, fantasy, hit subscribe right now. Not because I'm promising magic, but because you deserve a space that doesn't shame you for missing someone and doesn't pressure you into toxic games either. Subscribe and stay with me until the end, because I'm going to give you a shift that is not about ghosting, not about blocking, not about acting cold. It's about changing the way your nervous system participates in love so you stop turning your heart into a free service for someone who treats it like an app they open only when they feel like it. Let's start where you actually are, not the version of you that performs "I'm fine" for everybody else. You're functioning, yes, but you're not okay. You're doing your work, answering people, maybe even laughing, but there's a quiet part of you that keeps checking for them, not even because you want drama, because your body got used to them. Your body got used to the rhythm of their attention, and now that rhythm is broken, so your brain tries to fix it by searching. Searching your phone, searching their social media, searching for old messages, searching your memory for the moment it started changing. When did they stop being warm? When did good morning turn into hey? When did effort turn into excuses? When did your love turn into something you had to earn back every week? You've probably done that thing where you scroll up in the chat like you're investigating your own heartbreak. You read the early messages where they sounded alive, where they asked questions, where they replied fast, where they showed curiosity, and then you see the slow fade, the delays, the half replies, the way you started working harder, writing longer, explaining more, softening your words so you wouldn't scare them away. That's the moment your self-respect started negotiating with your attachment. That's the moment your love stopped being a mutual exchange and started becoming emotional labor. And here's what people don't understand about emotional labor in relationships. Emotional labor isn't just doing nice things. Emotional labor is when you become responsible for the emotional stability of the connection. You become the one who checks in, the one who repairs tension, the one who smooths misunderstandings, the one who keeps conversations alive, the one who senses distance and tries to close it. Over time, you don't just love them. You manage them. You manage their moods, their silence, their inconsistency, their comfort, and the more you manage it, the less they have to. That's why it feels like they don't miss you, because for a long time their brain didn't experience you as a person they needed to pursue. Their brain experienced you as a system that would always re-stabilize the connection. They could drift and you would pull it back. They could go quiet and you would fill the gap. They'd say, A could be careless, and you would explain your pain so gently that it didn't cost them anything to keep behaving the same way. So your nervous system is exhausted because it's been doing two jobs. It's been trying to love them and protect you at the same time. Every time they pull away, your body interprets it like a threat, and it triggers that anxious wave. Your heart beats faster, your stomach drops, your mind starts running scenarios, your brain starts bargaining. Maybe they're busy. Maybe I said something wrong. Maybe if I send something light, they'll come back. That urge to reach out isn't a weakness. It's your nervous system trying to restore safety. But here's what's brutal. The way you restored safety was by giving them access, by giving them a message, by giving them reassurance, by giving them presence. So your brain learned that relief equals contact. That's why you feel addicted, because in a way your body learned to use them like regulation. Not because you're pathetic, because you're human and you attach to someone inconsistent. And inconsistency is the strongest trigger for obsession. Now their side looks calm for a different reason. Their brain learned the opposite lesson. Their brain learned distance doesn't lead to loss. It leads to you trying harder. It leads to you explaining. It leads to you staying. That doesn't make them evil. It makes them comfortable. And comfort is dangerous because comfort makes people careless. When there is no fear of losing you, they don't feel urgency. They don't feel that ache you feel, not because they're stronger, but because their nervous system hasn't been challenged. This is why you can miss them like you're grieving, and they can act like nothing happened, because you are experiencing uncertainty as danger, and they are experiencing certainty as normal. You're the one living in a system where love feels unstable. They're living in a system where your love feels automatic. And this is where we have to get serious, because if your channel is a psychology guide, you have to tell the truth nobody else tells. The goal is not to make them miss you. The goal is to stop making your self-worth depend on being missed, because missing is not proof of love. Missing is proof of nervous system agitation. Sometimes people miss you because they lost convenience. Sometimes they miss you because they lost your attention. Sometimes they miss you because they lost control. And if you confuse "they miss me" with "they changed," you will walk right back into the same loop with a fresh hope and the same outcome. So what is the shift that actually changes everything without repeating the same "pull away and they'll chase" script? The shift is not silence. The shift is not a boundary speech. The shift is not punishment. The shift is removing the emotional reward they've been getting from your loyalty while they stay inconsistent. Because right now, even in distance, they're still rewarded. How? Through your emotional availability, through the fact that you're still watching, still waiting, still ready to reconnect, still giving them the comfort of knowing your heart is open, even when they didn't earn access to it. That is the reward. And as long as that reward exists, their brain doesn't have to register loss. Here's the hard part. Most people think the solution is be colder, but coldness is a mask. Coldness still keeps them central because you're performing a reaction for them. The real shift is something quieter and more powerful. You stop waiting in private. You stop monitoring. You stop checking. You stop rehearsing imaginary conversations where they finally understand. You stop placing your nervous system on hold for someone who is living normally. Because waiting is how you keep the bond alive. Waiting is not neutral. Waiting is participation. Waiting is you telling your brain, my life pauses until this person returns. And your brain believes you. Your brain then treats their return like a survival event. That's why one message can flip your mood. That's why you can be okay for an hour and then spiral again, because your nervous system is orbiting their unpredictability. So the first part of the shift is internal, but it becomes external through behavior. When they go quiet, you don't fill the gap. You don't send a meme to keep the connection warm. You don't ask, "Are you okay?" to relieve your anxiety. You recognize the anxiety and you regulate it without using them as medicine. You move your body, you change your environment, you do something physical that tells your nervous system you are not trapped, because obsession grows in stillness. Obsession grows in the same room, the same screen, the same loop, Vehement breaks loops. Then comes the second part, and this is the part that changes how they experience you. When they return with casual energy after being inconsistent, you don't reward it with immediate warmth that erases consequences. You don't punish them either. You respond with clarity and calm, but you keep your access expensive, not in money, in effort, in consistency, in respect. That means you stop giving them the best parts of you for the cheapest behavior. You stop giving deep emotional intimacy to shallow effort. You stop giving reassurance to someone who has been creating insecurity. You stop giving your softness to someone who keeps dropping it. And if you're wondering how that looks without repeating a boundary speech, it looks like this. They come back with, "Hey, You respond when you feel calm, not when you feel anxious. You don't rush. You don't over-explain. You keep it simple. You don't pretend nothing happened. You also don't beg for a conversation about it. You let reality be real. You let the gap exist. You let the discomfort teach. Because the discomfort is what creates missing, not your speech, not your sadness, not your paragraphs. Your sadness never made them miss you. Your sadness made you available. Your paragraphs made you explain your value to someone who should have seen it.
So you become the kind of person whose love is not always accessible. Not because you're playing games, because you're protecting your nervous system. You become the kind of person who doesn't automatically restart the relationship like nothing happened just because they reappeared.
And this is where their brain starts feeling something new. Not because you disappeared, but because the old pattern no longer works. Their nervous system is used to the idea that if they drift, you will close the distance. If they go cold, you will warm it up. If they return, you will be grateful. If they give crumbs, you will call it progress. When you stop doing that, you don't just create an absence. You create uncertainty about access. That's the moment their brain starts scanning. That's the moment your name shows up in their mind without them inviting it. That's the moment they start replaying. Not because you made them, but because their nervous system is now dealing with a reality it hasn't had to deal with before. The possibility that your love is not guaranteed. Now I want to talk about the most painful part, because it's the part your audience is living. When you stop feeding the pattern, you will feel withdrawal. Real withdrawal.
Your brain will scream at you to restore the old system. It will tell you to send just checking in. It will tell you to apologize for having standards. It will tell you to soften your boundary because loneliness feels like danger. And you will be tempted, not because you're weak, but because your nervous system is used to using them as relief.
So you need a replacement, not just willpower. You need a new regulation ritual. You need to teach your body that safety can come from you, that relief can come from your own choices, that peace does not require their attention. This is where the psychology guide part becomes real. You don't just say focus on yourself, you make it specific. You create a rule for your own mind. When the urge hits to check them, you do a 3-step shift. You name the feeling, you change the environment, you redirect your attention into an action that gives you a result you can see. A clean room, a workout, a walk, a journal page, a meal you cook, something that turns your nervous system from helpless to active. Because helplessness is the fuel of obsession. And as you do this, something begins to change in you that most people don't expect. You don't magically stop missing them, but you stop romanticizing them. You stop making them the only source of emotional meaning.
You start seeing the pattern more clearly. You start noticing how much you were carrying, how often you were the one creating closeness, how many times you lowered your needs just to keep the connection alive. And when you see that clearly, your missing changes. It stops feeling like love and it starts feeling like grief for the version of yourself that tolerated less than you deserved. That is the turning point.
Because at that point, even if they come back, you're not as easy to hook. Even if they message, you're not shaking. Even if they say, I miss you, you don't melt into it like it's proof of change. You understand that missing is not rebuilding. You understand that words are not repair. You understand that regret can be temporary, but patterns are usually permanent unless someone is willing to do real work. So if they come back, you don't ask for promises. You watch behavior. You watch consistency. You watch whether they take responsibility without you coaching them. You watch whether they show effort when it's inconvenient, not only when they're lonely. You watch whether they can handle your standards without making you feel guilty for having them. And if they can't, you don't punish them. You don't beg them. You don't try to be understood by someone who benefits from misunderstanding you.
You step away and you keep stepping, not because you're trying to haunt them, but because you're trying to heal. Now let me say something that might be the most important line in this entire video. Sometimes they don't miss you because they never bonded the way you bonded. And that truth will either destroy you or free you depending on how you interpret it. If you interpret it as, I'm not enough, it destroys you. If you interpret it as, I gave depth to someone who only had surface, it frees you.
Because your worth is not measured by how hard someone feels your absence. Your worth is measured by how you treat yourself when someone fails to value your presence. That's the real lesson. That's the real psychological shift. You stop using their reaction as evidence of your value. You start using your standards as evidence of your growth. And when you live like that, something weird happens. They can't read you the same way anymore. They can't predict you the same way. Not because you're being mysterious, because you're not emotionally available in the same cheap way. That's when they start missing you in a way they can't switch off. Not because you vanished, but because the role you used to play in their nervous system is gone. You used to be the cushion, the forgiveness, the emotional safety net, the no matter what. When that disappears, their mind starts looking for it, because the brain hates losing what it got used to. Here's the part you have to teach your audience, and you have to teach it with honesty. Their missing you is not your mission. Your mission is your peace. Their regret is not your reward. Your reward is your self-respect. And if you keep chasing the moment they finally miss you, you're still chained to them. So the win is not that they text. The win is that you're okay even if they don't. The win is that you stop training people to think they can treat you carelessly and still keep you. The win is that you stop confusing attachment with love. The win is that you stop shrinking your needs just to avoid being alone. And if you want to be the kind of person who never ends up in this loop again, you have to adopt one quiet rule. You don't give relationship privileges to someone who is giving you uncertainty. You don't give deep access to someone who is giving shallow effort. You don't give unlimited loyalty to someone who is giving inconsistent presence. That one rule will save your life emotionally. Because when your love becomes earned, it becomes respected. When your love becomes automatic, it becomes used. So if you're listening to this and something is tightening in your chest, let that be your sign. Not a sign to send a paragraph. Not a sign to blow up their phone, not a sign to perform strength online, a sign to stop waiting in private, a sign to stop monitoring, a sign to stop keeping the door open just because you're afraid of silence. Yo. Our heart is not an emergency room for people who keep hurting themselves and then asking you to heal them. Your love is not a subscription people can cancel and reactivate whenever they feel like it. You deserve someone who feels your presence while you're still there, not someone who only values you after you're gone. And if you want more videos that explain relationship psychology like a human guide, not like a recycled algorithm script, hit subscribe and stay close to this channel. Because we're not here to teach you how to be missed. We're here to teach you how to stop abandoning yourself for people who only show up when it's convenient. The day you stop feeding their brain the comfort of your guarantee, their mind will finally start doing what yours has been doing for months. Not because you manipulated them, because you changed the data, you changed the pattern, you changed the access, and most importantly, you changed the way you show up for yourself. And that's the ending you really need, not them missing you. You choose you so deeply that whether they miss you or not, no longer decides your peace.